Her relatives showed up without warning with 2 suitcases and announced they were staying just a couple nights. By the second evening, they'd taken our bedroom, and my wife just smiled while her sister told me, "You're a guest in your own house now." Denver, Colorado was supposed to be our fresh start. New job, new lease, new routines, everything clean and reasonable on paper. I'd moved here for an IT support role with a contractor that handled on-call emergencies for clinics and small offices. My wife, Lauren, liked to say we were finally stable, the way people say it when they're trying to convince themselves. Stability, I learned, can be rearranged in 10 minutes by someone holding a suitcase handle. It happened on a Thursday night, the kind of early winter evening where the air tastes metallic and the sky sits low over the city like a lid. I'd just gotten home from a late ticket, the kind where you're crawling under a desk chasing a cable while someone stands over you breathing anxiety. My shoulders were tight. My brain was still half at work. When I turned the key, the lock felt wrong. Not jammed. Used. Like it had been turned recently by someone who didn't live inside my habits. The moment I opened the door, I smelled perfume and takeout and a faint, unfamiliar detergent. Too floral to be ours. I took one step in and froze. 2 hard-shell suitcases stood in the entryway, upright like guards. One was matte black with airline scuffs. The other was pale pink with a dangling tag that said, Kara, in bold marker. A tote bag sat on top like a crown. Lauren came out of the kitchen wiping her hands on a dish towel, smiling too brightly. "Hey," she said, like this was normal. "You're home." Behind her, in my living room, sat her mom, Donna, and her sister, Kara. Donna had the remote. Kara had her feet up on our coffee table, scrolling her phone like she owned the air. Kara didn't stand. She didn't even look surprised to see me. She tilted her head and smiled in that way that isn't friendliness. It's assessment. "Ethan," she said, dragging my name out like a test. "Lauren," I said, because my eyes had already found the suitcases again, and my stomach was already doing the math. "What is this?" Donna lifted a hand in a tiny wave. "Hi, sweetheart." Lauren's smile tightened. "They're staying a couple nights," she said quickly, "just until Donna's car situation is figured out." I blinked. "Car situation?" Kara shrugged. "Long story." I looked at Lauren. "You didn't tell me." Her phone buzzed on the counter behind her. She didn't look at it, but her hand twitched toward it like a reflex. "I texted you," she said, voice gentle and warning at the same time. "You were busy." I pulled my phone out, thumbed through notifications. A message from Lauren sat there from earlier in the day, buried under work pings. Lauren. "Mom and Kara might swing by tonight. Don't overreact. Just be nice." "Might swing by," I repeated, staring at her. "With luggage." Kara laughed, soft and sharp. "Oh my God," she said like I was being dramatic. "It's 2 suitcases. We didn't bring a marching band." Donna leaned forward with that practiced motherly concern. "Ethan, honey, it's not a big deal. Families help families." Lauren stepped closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "Please," she murmured. "Not tonight." That was the first moment of quiet horror. Not the suitcases. Not the surprise guests. It was the way she said please. Like she wasn't asking for peace. She was asking me to cooperate with a plan I hadn't agreed to. I swallowed my irritation the way I'd swallowed so many things lately. "Okay," I said, because arguing in the doorway wouldn't change who was already inside our home. The evening moved on in a weird, tilted version of normal. Donna talked about her stress and how she couldn't sleep, and how Denver traffic was insane. Kara critiqued our furniture like she was reviewing a hotel. Lauren moved around the kitchen too fast, cleaning things that didn't need cleaning. At one point, I went to the hallway closet to grab extra blankets, and I noticed something that made my pulse jump. Our spare key hook was empty. The little metal peg where we kept the backup set. Gone. I turned my head slowly. Lauren was at the sink, back to me, shoulders stiff. "Where are the spare keys?" I asked. She didn't turn around. "I moved them." "Where?" A beat. Then she said, "Somewhere safe." I almost laughed. Somewhere safe? In my own apartment in front of two people who hadn't been invited. Kara's voice floated over from the couch. "If you're worried about safety, you should be happy we're here," she said. More eyes. More eyes. That sounded helpful if you pretended it wasn't a takeover. That night, Donna went to bed early, and Kara stayed up late, talking loudly on speakerphone in the living room like she wanted the walls to know she existed. I sat at the kitchen table, trying to answer a couple work emails, but my brain kept snagging on small things. Kara's shoes by our entry like she'd always left them there, Donna's bag on our chair, Lauren's tight smile that never quite reached her eyes. Around midnight, Lauren leaned over me and whispered, "We're giving them the bedroom." I stared at her, thinking I'd misheard. "What?" She exhaled through her nose like I was the one making this hard. "My mom has back pain. She can't sleep on the couch. So What, sleep on the couch?" I asked. Lauren's gaze flicked toward the hallway, then back to me. "Just for a couple nights. Don't make it a thing." There it was again. Don't make it a thing. Like the thing wasn't happening until I named it. Kara walked past us then, already carrying a pillow. She didn't ask. She didn't wait. She paused at our bedroom door, looked back at me and said, smiling, "Thanks for being flexible." The way she said it made it sound like my options were flexibility or war. I watched them take our room in silence. Donna settled into our bed like it had always been hers. Kara dragged the pink suitcase in and shoved it against my side of the dresser. Lauren stood in the doorway smiling, hands clasped as if hosting. That was the thumbnail moment of the night, and I hated that my brain framed it that way. Lauren on the right, face composed but hard. Kara in the center hauling the suitcase by the handle. Donna behind her adjusting my pillow, me in the hallway with my keys in my hand, frozen, and my phone glowing with Lauren's earlier text still open like evidence. When the door closed, the click sounded final. Lauren turned to me in the hallway. "We'll be fine," she said, voice soft, eyes sharp. "Just don't push." "Don't push what?" I asked. "My own life." She flinched, then immediately smoothed her face. "You get intense," she said quietly. "They'll take it wrong." I felt something cold move through my chest. "They?" I said. "Or you?" Lauren didn't answer. She walked past me and lay down on the couch, pulling a blanket up like she was done negotiating. I lay on the other end of the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint sound of Kara's laughter through our bedroom wall and Donna's low voice responding like a conspirator. At 2:07 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. Property management. Notice: unauthorized occupants are a lease violation. Please contact the office by 10 a.m. My skin went hot, then cold. I sat up, heart pounding, and looked toward the hallway. The bedroom door was cracked open just a sliver. A line of light spilled out. I could hear a whisper. Two voices, low and urgent. Lauren was on the couch, facing away from me, still as stone. I got up quietly and walked toward the bedroom. The carpet felt too loud under my feet. My own breathing sounded like a confession, As I reached the door, I saw something on the floor just inside. An envelope, half hidden under Kara's pink suitcase tag. White paper, official-looking. My name printed at the top. And in the same second, Kara's voice cut through the crack, soft and amused. "He doesn't even know yet." I froze with my fingers inches from the door. I stood there with my fingers hovering near the door, like touching it would turn the whispers into something I couldn't unhear. Then Donna coughed, one of those deliberate little "I'm here" coughs, and the voices stopped. A beat later, Lauren's voice floated out, too calm. "Ethan, go back to bed." I backed away like I'd been caught sneaking through my own home. I returned to the couch, sat in the dark, and stared at my phone until my eyes felt sandy. That property management text kept glowing in my head like a neon sign. Unauthorized occupants. Lease violation. By 10 a.m. The worst part was the timing. Whoever sent it didn't notice anything at 2 a.m. Someone wanted me awake. Someone wanted me rattled before morning. I barely slept. Every time I drifted, I'd hear Kara's suitcase wheels in my head, the click of our bedroom door closing, her voice saying, "He doesn't even know yet." At 6:30, the bedroom door opened. Kara walked out like she'd just finished a spa day. She wore Lauren's robe, tied snug at the waist, hair up, phone in hand. She didn't even look guilty. She looked entertained. "Oh, good, you're up," she said, as if we'd planned breakfast together. I pushed myself off the couch, my back stiff from sleeping like a folded chair. "Why are you wearing that?" Kara glanced down like she'd forgotten. "It was hanging. Relax." Lauren came out behind her, already dressed, already ready to move the day forward like she could outrun my questions. She poured coffee into a travel mug, not a regular mug. Travel meant leaving. Leaving meant control. "We need to talk," I said. Lauren didn't meet my eyes. "After," she said. "Not in front of them." "In front of them," I echoed. "They're in my apartment." Donna appeared next, rubbing her lower back dramatically. "Sweetheart," she said to Lauren like I wasn't there, "my legs are killing me. We should do the couch today." Kara smirked. "Or he can go take a walk. Fresh air might help." It was small. It was petty. It was absolutely calculated. 3 people talking around me like I was furniture. I pulled my phone out and stepped into the bathroom, the only place with a door that still felt like mine. I called the property management number. It went to voicemail with cheerful office music in the background. "This is Ethan," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I received a message about unauthorized occupants. I need clarification. Please call me back." When I opened the door again, Lauren was waiting in the hallway. She'd positioned herself between me and the living room like a bouncer. "What did you do?" she asked quietly. I stared at her. "What did I do?" Her eyes flicked toward the bedroom, then back. "They're stressed. You can't start a fight." "I'm not trying to start a fight," I said, but my voice cracked anyway. "I got a text at 2 in the morning saying we're violating the lease." Lauren's face changed, just a tiny twitch at the corner of her mouth like she'd almost smiled and caught herself. "It's probably automated," she said quickly. "Someone complained about noise or parking. It's nothing." "How would they even know?" I asked. "They just got here." Lauren's gaze slid away again. "Denver buildings are sensitive," she murmured, like that explained anything. I looked past her into the living room. Donna sat with her hands folded like prayer. Kara leaned back, scrolling, and right there on the coffee table, like it belonged, was a folder, manila, with a few papers sticking out. I hadn't seen it last night. "What's that?" I asked. Kara didn't look up. "Adult stuff." "Don't," Lauren warned, her voice suddenly sharper. That was the second quiet horror. The way my wife could sharpen one word into a blade, then act like she was just being reasonable. I walked over anyway, not fast, not dramatic, like I was proving I could move through my own space without permission. I reached for the folder. Lauren lunged a half step, then stopped herself like she realized grabbing me would look bad. Instead, she went soft. "Ethan," she said, in that careful voice she used around other people, the voice that made me sound like the problem by default. "Please, just let it go." Kara finally looked up. Her eyes were bright, amused. "You're really doing the most, huh?" I slid the top sheet out. My name was on it. Not on a lease addendum, on a printed email chain. Property management. A subject line in bold. Complaint. Unit 3B. Safety concerns. My throat tightened. Safety concerns. Those words didn't belong to us. I scanned the first paragraph. Someone had written about escalation, aggressive tone, women feeling unsafe. The words were vague but poisonous. They didn't say what I did. They said how people felt around me. A small line near the middle made my stomach drop. Resident's spouse has requested discretion due to ongoing domestic stress. I lifted my head slowly and looked at Lauren. She didn't flinch. She held my gaze like she'd practiced it. "You emailed them," I said, the sentence leaving my mouth like it didn't want to exist. Lauren's lips parted, then closed. She took a breath and said, "I was protecting us." Kara let out a little laugh, just one sound, but it landed like a slap. "Protecting who?" I asked. Lauren's eyes glistened fast like someone turned on the faucet. "Ethan, you get intense. You don't even hear yourself sometimes." "I hear myself," I said, and my hands were shaking now, not with anger, with fear. "I hear myself trying not to lose it while you set traps." Donna sighed, long and theatrical. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said. "Here we go." Kara stood up, stepping closer like she wanted the confrontation. She held her phone loosely at her side, screen dark, but I saw the camera lens catch light. "You're scaring my mom," she said, loud enough to be heard through walls. My head snapped to her. "Put the phone down." "See?" Lauren said instantly, like she'd been waiting for that exact line. "That, right there." I realized in that moment what the folder was. Not paperwork, a script, a stage prop, a reason for the building to intervene. A reason for my wife to look like the calm one and me to look like the threat. I forced my hands down, palms open. "Nobody is scared," I said, careful. "I'm asking why you contacted property management." Lauren's voice stayed soft. "Because I don't know how to talk to you anymore." The phrase was perfect. It sounded sad. It sounded harmless. It sounded like something a woman says right before a man does something awful. It painted me without accusing me. Nia wasn't here. That was the only blessing. We didn't have kids, at least not yet. But even without a child in the room, I felt like I was being watched by an invisible jury. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A work notification. Then another. Then a calendar alert I didn't recognize. I pulled the phone out, and my blood went colder than the Denver air. An email preview from my job flashed across the screen. HR request. Please report to the office at 9:30 a.m. regarding a complaint. At the exact same time, Lauren's phone lit up in her hand. She tilted it away from me too quickly, but I caught the name on the banner notification before it disappeared. Miles, my younger brother, and the message preview was only 3 words. Did he read? I looked up at Lauren, and she looked back at me with that same steady face. Kara's phone came up, camera now pointed right at me, recording. Donna sat forward, eyes wide like she was ready to tell a story. And my front door, the one place I could have escaped, suddenly rattled with a hard knock. Not a neighbor knock, a building knock. I turned my head toward it as a voice called through the door, calm and official. "Property management. Open up, please." The knock hit the door again, harder, like whoever was out there had already decided how this conversation would end. Lauren didn't move right away. She just stood with her shoulders squared, face composed, like she'd been waiting for this cue. Kara's phone stayed up, lens pointed at me. Donna's hands pressed together like she was praying for something terrible to happen so she could be right about me. "Ethan," Lauren said softly, like she was talking to a dog that might bite. "Just let them in. Be normal." I stared at her. "I am being normal." Kara gave a tiny smirk and tilted the phone a little higher. The third knock came with a voice, still calm. "Property management. We need to check on a reported issue." Lauren walked to the door and opened it before I could decide whether to stop her. Cold hallway air poured in, carrying that disinfectant smell apartments always have, like somebody's been scrubbing away evidence for years. A man in a navy jacket stood there with a clipboard. Behind him was a building security guy, heavier set, hands clasped in front of him. 2 more people hovered farther down the hall like they were trying not to look like a crowd. "Ms. Carter?" the man asked, eyes going straight to Lauren. "Yes," she said, and her voice did something I'd never heard from her with me. Warm, polite, slightly shaken. "Thank you for coming." My stomach dropped. Not because they were here, because she just confirmed out loud that she called them. The man's gaze shifted to me. "Sir, are you Ethan Carter?" I heard Kara whisper, barely audible. "Yup." Lauren stepped slightly to the right of the doorway, positioning herself so her face was fully visible from the hall. I was on the left, half in shadow. The angle wasn't an accident. It was a camera frame. "That's me," I said, careful. "What's going on?" "We received a complaint about a disturbance and a report of safety concerns," he said, glancing at his clipboard like it contained a verdict. "We just need to ask a few questions and ensure everyone's okay." Lauren's eyes glistened instantly. Donna made a small wounded sound. I felt my pulse thudding in my throat, and I forced my hands down by my sides. Open, calm, non-threatening. I could feel my whole body being judged by invisible rules I hadn't agreed to. "There's no disturbance," I said. "I got a text about unauthorized occupants. I called your office. Nobody called me back." The man nodded like he'd heard this kind of denial 1,000 times. "We can address occupancy separately. Right now, we're responding to a concern." Lauren looked at him and spoke over me. "He's been under a lot of stress. He gets intense. I just want everyone safe." The security guy's eyes flicked to Kara's phone. Kara angled it so he could see she was recording, then smiled like she was being responsible. That was the thumbnail moment. Clear as day. Lauren on the right with tears that made her look fragile and real. Her mom behind her with a hand to her chest. Kara in the middle holding a phone like a weapon, and me on the left with my keys in my palm, trying not to look like a headline. The property manager cleared his throat. "Ma'am, would you like to step into the hallway and speak privately?" Lauren didn't hesitate. She stepped out, leaving the door open behind her. I started to follow, and the security guy shifted half an inch into my path without touching me. "Sir," he said quietly, "just hang back a moment." Hang back, like I was the hazard. I watched Lauren in the hallway, nodding, touching her face like she was wiping away tears. She kept glancing back at the apartment, not to check on me, more like she was checking that the frames stayed the same. Kara sat down on the couch and kept recording. Donna looked at me like I'd broken something sacred. I felt the worst kind of fear then. Not fear of being hurt, but fear of being described. Fear of someone else writing my story in official language while I stood right there, breathing. My phone buzzed again. Another email from work, more direct this time. HR. Do not discuss this matter with coworkers. Please bring your badge. I stared at the words until they blurred. In the hallway, Lauren raised her voice just enough for me to hear parts of it, like she wanted me to. He raised his voice. I felt cornered. I'm trying to de-escalate. I hadn't said more than a dozen sentences since I got home, but her words were building a version of me that didn't require facts, just vibes. Finally, the property manager stepped back into the doorway. His face was neutral, practiced. "Sir," he said, "we're going to ask you to step out into the hallway for a moment." "For what?" I asked. "To speak privately," he said, and then he added, softer, "It'll help everyone calm down." I could feel Kara's phone tracking me. I stepped out. The hallway felt like a stage, too. Neighbors' doors like dark eyes. One door across the hall cracked open a fraction, then closed again. Lauren stood a few feet away, arms crossed now, tears gone like they'd been switched off. That change was so fast it made my skin crawl. The property manager lowered his voice. "We have a written complaint, sir, from within the unit. Also, a report that additional occupants moved in without notice." "Moved in?" I snapped, then caught myself. "They arrived last night." "We're not here to debate," he said. "We need cooperation. Your wife is requesting space." My wife. Not Lauren. Not your spouse. My wife, like it was a legal category with instructions attached. I looked at Lauren. "You told them I'm dangerous." Lauren's face stayed calm. "I told them I don't feel safe when you get like this." "What is like this?" I asked, my voice breaking despite my effort. "Standing here, quiet, while you—" "Lower your voice," she said instantly, not loud, but sharp. The security guy's gaze tightened like he'd been waiting for that exact moment. I swallowed, forced my volume down. "Okay," I said. "Okay. What do you want?" The property manager checked his clipboard. "Given the complaint, we're issuing a notice. We strongly recommend you spend the next 24 hours elsewhere while the unit occupants reset." My mouth went dry. "You're telling me to leave my own apartment." "Voluntary," he said quickly. "But if things escalate again, we'll involve law enforcement. That's not what anybody wants." Law enforcement? The words hung in the air like a door slamming. Lauren watched me with that steady face. Kara's phone captured everything. Donna's expression said, "See?" I didn't want to give them a clip. I didn't want to give them a story. "Fine," I said, and my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. "I'll go to work. I have an HR meeting anyway." Lauren's eyes flicked, just once, like she hadn't expected me to say that. I walked back inside to grab my coat and laptop. Kara followed me with the camera close enough that I could hear her breathing. "Don't record me," I said, still calm. "I'm documenting," she replied, too cheerful. At the entryway table, my laptop bag wasn't where I'd left it. My spare key hook was still empty. And my car keys, my real car keys, not the little apartment key, weren't on my ring. I patted my pockets anyway. Nothing. I turned slowly and looked at Lauren. She held up my car keys between two fingers like they were nothing. "You're not driving," she said. "You're upset." "I'm not upset," I said, even though my whole body was buzzing. "I'm terrified. There's a difference." Lauren tilted her head. "Take an Uber. Please don't make this harder." Donna appeared behind her with a small, satisfied smile. Kara's phone stayed locked on my face. That was the quiet horror again. The sense that every object in my life, keys, bed, lease, job, could be moved out of my reach with one calm sentence. I grabbed my coat and my work badge and stepped toward the door. As I crossed the threshold, my phone lit up with a new text. From Miles this time. Not a preview, the full message. Miles. "Don't say anything in HR, just listen. Trust me." I stopped walking. The hallway felt like it tilted. "Trust me." Behind me, Lauren said softly, like she was giving the property manager a final line for the report. "He's leaving. Thank you." I looked at her one more time, at the way she stood on the right side of the doorway, perfectly composed. Then I walked toward the elevator, alone, with no car keys, no bedroom, and a meeting waiting for me like a second ambush. And as the elevator doors slid shut, my phone buzzed again with a calendar alert I did not remember creating. Coffee, 8:15 a.m. Miles. The location field was blank, but the reminder popped up anyway, like someone wanted me to see it. Pisati Block 46? The elevator opened on the lobby like it was spitting me out of my own life. Outside, Denver was still half dark, the air sharp enough to sting the back of my throat. I stood on the sidewalk with my coat half zipped, my badge in my hand, and that calendar alert still glowing on my screen like a dare. Coffee, 8:15 a.m. Miles. I hadn't made it. I didn't even know which coffee shop it meant. No address, no details, just the word coffee, like we were characters in a story someone else was writing. I texted him anyway. Me. Where? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. A quiet horror settled in, the kind that doesn't feel like panic. It feels like the floor gently giving way under your feet while everyone keeps smiling. I didn't have my car keys. I didn't have my bedroom. And now I didn't even have directions. I called an Uber, rode in silence with the driver playing low-talk radio, and watched the city slide past like a place I was visiting, not living in. I kept rehearsing what I'd say at HR, but Miles's message kept looping in my head. Don't say anything. Just listen. Trust me. Trust him. The same brother whose name had flashed on my wife's phone like a secret. When I got to my office building, the lobby looked too clean, too bright. The security turnstiles were already humming. I swiped my badge. Beep. Red light. I swiped again, slower, like being careful could fix a system. Beep. Red. The guard behind the desk didn't even have to check a screen. He just looked at me like he already knew. "Can I see your ID, sir?" My stomach dropped. "My badge isn't working. I've got an HR meeting." He nodded like that explained everything. "They'll come get you." It was humiliating in a way that felt designed. Not dramatic, not loud, just official. Like I'd become a problem with a procedure. A woman from HR appeared a minute later with a calm face and a forced smile. Her name tag said, Melissa. She didn't shake my hand. "Ethan," she asked. "That's me. Come with me." She walked me through the lobby like I was a package being escorted, not a person who'd worked here for months. People glanced up from their coffee and quickly looked away. One coworker, Brandon, met my eyes for half a second and then stared at his shoes. Melissa led me into a small conference room with frosted glass. Inside sat my supervisor, Rick, and another guy I'd only seen once before, corporate security. A laptop was open. A manila folder sat on the table like a prop from my apartment had followed me. I took the chair across from them. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren came in, perfectly timed like a stage cue. Lauren. Please don't come home today. We all need space. I stared at it until Melissa cleared her throat. Ethan, she said, tone gentle in a way that made my skin crawl. This is an administrative conversation. You're not in trouble for asking questions. We just need to address a complaint. Rick didn't look at me. He stared at the tabletop like it was safer. What complaint? I asked. Melissa slid a paper toward me. A client reported that you acted aggressively during a service call yesterday afternoon. My throat tightened. Yesterday afternoon I was under a desk fixing a cable. I didn't act aggressively at anyone. She nodded, still calm. That's your perspective, and we'll document it. But we also received a second report that concerns us. Corporate security finally spoke. It's about safety, he said, like the word was a weapon he enjoyed holding. Melissa turned the laptop so I could see. It was an email chain, and the subject line punched me right in the chest. Urgent, employee conduct concern. Someone had described me as volatile and unpredictable. They wrote that I raised my voice and made staff uncomfortable. No details, no facts, just feelings dressed up as policy. Then I saw a screenshot embedded in the email, an image of a message, cropped tight. It wasn't from me. It was from a phone I didn't recognize. He's been getting worse. I'm scared he'll snap. No sender name, just that line, like it had floated down from the universe. My mouth went dry. Who sent that? Melissa hesitated a fraction of a second too long. We can't disclose the source during an active review. Rick finally looked at me and there was something in his eyes I didn't like. Pity, but also distance. Like he'd already decided which version of me was safer for his career. I'm not violent, I said, and I hated that I even had to say it. I haven't threatened anyone. My wife's family showed up unannounced last night and— Ethan, Melissa interrupted softly, this isn't about your personal life. But it clearly was. Because why else would my badge be dead at 8 in the morning? Corporate security slid a second sheet toward me. We're placing you on paid leave for 72 hours while we investigate. You'll need to surrender your laptop and badge. My hands started shaking. I gripped my phone harder under the table to hide it. This is insane, I said, keeping my voice low, the way you keep your voice low when you know the room wants you to fail. You're punishing me over anonymous vibes. Melissa's smile tightened. We're not punishing you. We're being cautious. Cautious. That word again. The same word people use right before they lock you out of your own life. That was the thumbnail moment in that room, and I could see it like a frozen frame. Me on the left with my dead badge in my palm, Melissa in the center with the folder open, Rick beside her looking away, corporate security on the right with his hands folded, and the laptop screen glowing with that sentence. I'm scared he'll snap, like a caption I couldn't erase. I handed over my badge. I handed over my laptop. Each object leaving my hands felt like a chunk of my identity being quietly repossessed. When I stood up to leave, Melissa said, "Do you have someone you can stay with today?" The question sounded kind. It wasn't. It was a trap, an assumption that I was the kind of man who needed monitoring. "I'll figure it out," I said. In the hallway outside HR, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail transcription from an unknown number. 2 lines. "Ethan, don't react. They're trying to get you to blow up." Miles. My fingers went cold. I called him immediately, straight to voicemail. I walked outside into the morning light and stood on the sidewalk like an idiot, staring at the street. Cars passed. People carried coffees. Nobody knew my world had just been unhooked from its anchors. Then another message came through. Finally, a text from Miles. Miles. Same place we used to go when we were broke. Corner shop by the old light rail stop. 10 minutes. Come alone. I didn't remember the old light rail stop in Denver because we weren't from Denver. That phrase was a memory from somewhere else, some past life, some shared shorthand. It made my chest tighten because it meant he was trying to pull me into brother mode while my actual life burned. I walked there because what else did I have? The shop was small, warm, loud with steaming milk and grinding beans. Miles sat at a two-top by the window, cap pulled low, coffee untouched. He looked tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. It was about guilt. He stood when he saw me, but he didn't hug me. He didn't even smile. He just looked at my face like he was checking for damage. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said. "Why is your name on my wife's phone? Why is HR acting like I'm a threat? Why did my badge stop working before I even walked in?" Miles swallowed hard. "Sit." I sat, and for a second I just listened to the espresso machine hiss like it was trying to drown us out. He leaned forward and kept his voice low. "Lauren called me," he said. "Yesterday, and last night." "What did she want?" I asked. "To help," he said, and his mouth twisted like he hated the word. "To talk you down. To make sure you didn't do anything stupid." "I didn't do anything," I hissed. "I know," he said quickly, eyes darting. "I know. That's why I'm here." He slid his phone across the table, screen facing down. "I can't show you everything," he said, almost whispering. "But I need you to understand something." "Understand what?" Miles's hands tightened around his coffee cup until his knuckles went pale. "They're building a file on you, Ethan. Not one big lie, lots of small things. A complaint here, a safety concern there, a witness who felt uncomfortable. It's like they don't need proof. They just need a pattern." My throat went tight. "Who is they?" Miles looked past me out the window like he couldn't say it while looking at my face. "Lauren," he said finally, "and Kara, and Donna, and people they can pull in." A quiet horror crawled up my spine. Not rage, not even heartbreak, just that cold feeling of being targeted by calm people. "So you're helping them?" I asked, and my voice came out raw. Miles' eyes snapped back to mine. "No," he said, too fast. "I'm trying to stop it." "How?" I demanded. He shook his head slightly. "By keeping you quiet. Because the only thing they don't have yet is you doing something they can point to and say, 'See?'" I stared at him. "Why are you involved at all?" Miles's jaw flexed. He looked like he wanted to say something and couldn't, like there was a wall inside his mouth. "I made a mistake," he said, barely audible. My stomach dropped again. "What mistake?" Before he could answer, the bell over the coffee shop door chimed. I turned, and my blood went ice cold. Lauren walked in with Kara right behind her, both of them scanning the room like they already knew exactly where we'd be. Lauren's face was composed, almost gentle. Kara's was bright with that same amused energy, phone already in her hand like she'd never stopped recording. Lauren spotted me and smiled like she'd just found me, like this wasn't an ambush. "Ethan," she said softly, loud enough for strangers to hear. "There you are." Miles went rigid, eyes flicking between us like a trapped animal. And Kara lifted her phone, lens catching the light, and said under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear, "Perfect." Lauren didn't rush me. She walked up like she'd just run into me on her lunch break, like our apartment hadn't turned into a courtroom 12 hours ago. Kara stayed a step behind her, phone already up, lens centered on my face the way people center a target. Donna wasn't with them, which almost made it worse. It meant this was the mobile unit. Lauren's comm, Kara's camera, and whatever story they planned to capture. Miles went stiff beside me. His hand slid instinctively toward his phone, then stopped like he was afraid of what might light up on it. Lauren stopped at the edge of our table and put one hand on the back of the empty chair across from me, claiming the space without asking. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice soft enough to sound loving to strangers. I didn't answer her question. I nodded toward Kara's phone. "Tell her to stop recording." Kara's smile widened. "I'm not recording," she lied, then tilted the screen just enough that I saw the red dot. Lauren didn't even look at Kara. "Ethan," she said gently, "you're making a scene." The words hit like a switch being flipped. I felt the coffee shop suddenly full of eyes. People pretending not to listen. People listening anyway. "I didn't make this," I said, keeping my voice low. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. "You followed me here." Lauren's eyebrows lifted slightly like she was surprised by my tone. "Followed you?" she repeated, amused and wounded at the same time. "I've been trying to find you. You didn't answer my calls." I pulled my phone out, thumb moving fast before I could talk myself out of it. My call log was a mess of missed calls, most from her, some from unknown numbers, and one from property management's office that hadn't come until almost noon, after the damage was done. I scrolled to the messages and showed her the last one she'd sent. "Lauren. Please don't come home today. We all need space." "That's not trying to find me," I said. "That's trying to keep me out." Lauren's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened for half a second. "You're upset," she said, and it wasn't a statement, it was a label. Kara's phone shifted slightly, tracking the moment. Miles's knee bounced under the table like he was holding back a tremor. Lauren glanced at him as if she'd just noticed him. "Hi, Miles," she said, too sweet. Miles swallowed. "Lauren." She leaned in, just enough to be intimate, just enough to look concerned to anyone watching. "Thank you for meeting him," she said, loud enough for me to hear, and maybe loud enough for the room to hear. I didn't know what else to do. My stomach twisted. "Stop talking like I'm not here." Lauren's eyes flicked to mine. "Then act like you're here," she said softly. "Not like this." Kara made a small sound, like a pitying laugh. That was when I saw the crumpled receipt near Miles's coffee cup, half folded, smudged with a thumbprint. The barista had circled something in pen, 2 names at the top. Lauren, Miles. My throat went dry. "What is that?" Miles's hand shot out like he wanted to cover it, too late. Kara's camera dipped toward the receipt, hungry. Lauren didn't even look down. She just said, "It's a receipt, Ethan." "No," I said, forcing myself to breathe. "Why are your names both on it?" Miles stared at the tabletop like it might open and swallow him. Lauren's mouth tightened a fraction. Kara answered for her, cheerful. "Because we're adults and we can order coffee, dude." I heard it then, the quiet horror underneath the words. Not what they were saying, but how prepared they sounded. How familiar it was for them to stand in a public place and pretend I was the unstable variable. I looked at Miles. "Tell me," I said. "Right now." Miles opened his mouth, closed it, then finally said, "It's not what you think." Lauren's eyes flashed. "Miles," she warned, almost inaudible. He flinched. That flinch did something to me. It wasn't anger. It was the sudden sick clarity that my brother was afraid of my wife. I pushed my chair back slowly, careful, like I was defusing a bomb. Kara's phone rose, following my movement like I'd stepped onto a marked spot. "Sit down," Lauren said softly. "Don't tell me what to do," I replied, and immediately I heard how it sounded. Kara's smile sharpened as if she'd just gotten the clip she needed. Lauren turned slightly so her face was angled toward the window, toward the light, toward anyone who might glance over and see her as the victim in a bright frame. She kept her voice gentle. "Ethan," she said, "you're scaring people." I looked around. A couple at the counter had gone quiet. A woman near the door held her cup midair, frozen. The barista's eyes darted between us like he was deciding whether to intervene. I forced my hands open, palms visible. "Nobody is scared," I said. "You're staging this." Kara scoffed, then spoke loudly, for the room. "Staging? You're the one who got kicked out of your own building." My chest tightened. "I wasn't kicked out." Lauren's eyes widened slightly, and I knew Kara had just crossed a line Lauren hadn't wanted crossed yet. Lauren recovered fast, placing a hand over her heart like she was steadying herself. "Let's go home," she said, still gentle. "We can talk when you're calm." "I can't go home," I said. "You have my keys." Lauren's hand slid into her coat pocket and, like a magic trick, she produced them. My car key fob dangled from her fingers, swinging slightly. "I brought them," she said, "because I'm trying to help." Help. Withholding and returning like she was training an animal. Miles stood up suddenly, chair scraping. The sound made heads turn. He leaned toward Lauren, voice low but urgent. "Stop," he said. This is wrong." Lauren's eyes went flat. "Don't," she said. Kara moved closer, phone almost between them. "Aw," she cooed. "Now he's getting loud too." Miles's jaw clenched. He grabbed his phone and, without thinking, turned it so I could see the screen for a split second. A message thread, lots of bubbles, my name in it. A line jumped out before he jerked it back. Lauren. If he explodes in public, it's done. I'll have what I need. My vision tunneled. I didn't move. I didn't shout. I just stared at Miles, because if I looked at Lauren, I wasn't sure what would happen to my face. Lauren's expression flickered, just for an instant, like she realized the curtain had shifted. Miles swallowed hard and turned his phone so the screen faced down on the table like he was trying to bury it in wood. Kara's camera snapped toward his hands. "What was that?" Kara asked, voice bright, too bright. Miles's voice came out rough. "Nothing." "It didn't look like nothing," I said, still quiet because my throat felt packed with cotton. "Lauren." Lauren exhaled slowly. "Ethan," she said, and the softness was gone now. "You're spiraling." I shook my head. "I'm seeing." Kara took a step closer. "Don't accuse her," she snapped, and the snap was real for once. "You don't get to twist everything because you can't control her anymore." Control. That word. like the entire morning hadn't been her controlling every door, every key, every official person who spoke to me. Miles's shoulders sagged. He looked like a man standing in front of a train. He finally lifted his eyes to mine. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know she'd take it this far. My lungs wouldn't fill properly." "Take what?" I said, and it was barely a voice. Lauren's phone buzzed then. She glanced down, and her face softened into something that looked almost relieved. She raised her screen slightly, not to show me, but I caught the header on the notification. Temporary Protection Order, ready for review. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. Lauren looked up at me and smiled. Small, controlled, devastating. "I tried," she said quietly, so only I could hear. "You wouldn't cooperate." Kara's camera swung back to my face, eager. My hands went cold. My body stayed still, but inside my mind something slammed against the walls, desperate to escape. I could hear my own breath, shallow and fast. I could hear the coffee grinder. I could hear the barista say, "Should I call someone?" under his breath. Lauren stepped back, giving herself space, giving herself safety on camera. She held my keys loosely like bait. "Come with us," she said, voice gentle again, for the room. "Let's go. Please." I stared at her, at Miles, at Kara's phone, at the receipt with both their names, at the way the entire shop had gone quiet like it was waiting for me to become the monster they'd described. Then my phone buzzed. One more message, this time from an unknown number, with a photo attachment. The preview loaded just enough for my blood to turn to ice. A picture of our bedroom. My side of the dresser open, my passport drawer pulled out, and a sticky note on top, written in thick black marker. "Don't come looking. You'll make it worse." I lifted my head slowly, and Lauren's eyes met mine like she already knew what I'd just received. She didn't ask what it was. She just said softly, "See? This is why we need help." And Kara's camera moved closer, closer, until the lens was a dark circle swallowing the space between us. "Ethan," Miles whispered, voice breaking. "Don't." I didn't answer either of them. I just turned and walked toward the door, because if I stayed in that shop 1 second longer, I knew I'd give them exactly what they wanted. Behind me, Lauren called out, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Ethan, please don't leave." And someone near the counter said, "Should we call 911?" The bell over the door chimed as I stepped into the cold. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking, and a calm voice said, "Mr. Carter, this is Officer Daniels. We need to speak with you about a report made this morning." I stopped walking, because the voice wasn't asking where I was. It sounded like he already knew. The cold bit my ears as I stood on the sidewalk with that officer's voice in my phone like a hand on the back of my neck. "Mr. Carter," he repeated, patient. "We need to speak with you about a report made this morning. Where are you located?" I looked up and realized something that made my stomach turn harder than anything Lauren had said inside that coffee shop. A patrol car was already idling half a block away. Not speeding in. Not searching. Just waiting. "I'm outside a coffee shop," I said, forcing my voice flat. "Downtown." "Stay where you are," Officer Daniels said. "Hands visible. We're not here to arrest you. We just need to talk." Hands visible. The words hit like a label being slapped onto my skin. I didn't run. I didn't argue. I stepped to the side of the building, away from the door, away from the crowd, and I put my phone down on the little concrete ledge like it might explode. I kept both palms open at waist height, like I was trying to prove innocence with posture. The patrol car rolled up slow. Officer Daniels got out first, then another officer, both with that careful body language that says, "We don't know what you are yet." "Ethan Carter?" Daniels asked. "Yes." He didn't touch me. He didn't raise his voice. He just studied me with eyes that had seen 1,000 domestic calls and learned to measure every breath. "We received a report of a domestic disturbance," he said, "and a request for a temporary protection order." My mouth went dry. "From my wife?" Daniels nodded. "She alleges you've been escalating and that she feels unsafe." I felt the urge to laugh, but it would have come out wrong. I swallowed it back and tasted coffee and metal. "I haven't touched her," I said. "I haven't threatened her. She locked me out, took my keys, called property management, and now my job put me on leave because of anonymous safety concerns. This is—" Daniels held up a hand, calm. "I hear you. This is why we talk. Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" The question was the same trap HR had used. If I said no, I sounded unstable. If I said yes, I was accepting exile. "I can get a hotel," I said. "Good," he said. "For now, the court wants you to avoid contact with her until a hearing. You'll be served formally, but I'm advising you now." I stared at him. "So, she gets the apartment." He didn't answer that directly. "This is temporary. You can contest it." I could hear my heartbeat in my teeth. "Do you know why she's doing this?" Officer Daniels' expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened like he'd heard this exact question a lot. "I don't speculate," he said. "I document." Behind him, the coffee shop door chimed and I heard Lauren's voice, soft, high, trembling in that practiced way. "Officer, that's him." I turned. Lauren stood on the sidewalk to the right, perfectly lit by the pale morning sun, Kara beside her with the phone still raised, Donna now behind them like the final boss arriving late. The three of them were clustered tight, a family unit, a safe-looking picture. And then, like a punchline God hated, Miles was there too, a few steps behind Lauren, cap pulled low, face wrecked. That was the frozen frame I'll never forget. 2 cops on the left with body cams blinking, me in the middle with my hands open and my phone on a ledge, and on the right, Lauren crying, Kara filming, Donna glaring, and Miles standing behind them like a shadow with a pulse. Lauren pressed her fingers to her lips like she was steadying herself. "I just want him to calm down," she said loudly, for the officers, for the cameras, for anyone who might be watching. "He's been unpredictable." I felt something cold and steady settle inside me. Not rage, not panic, a decision. I looked straight at Officer Daniels. "Can I show you something?" Daniels hesitated, then nodded. Slowly. I picked up my phone carefully and opened the photo message, the one with our bedroom, the open drawer, the sticky note. I held it out so he could see without leaning into my space. Daniel's eyes flicked over it. "Who sent this?" "Unknown number," I said, "but it was taken in my apartment, this morning, after I was told not to come home." Lauren gasped like she was offended. "I don't know anything about that," she said instantly. Kara's phone zoomed a little, tracking my face for any twitch. Daniels nodded once like he'd filed it away. "We'll note it." Donna stepped forward, chin lifted. "Officer, he's manipulating," she said. "He always has an angle." I didn't look at Donna. I didn't even look at Kara. I looked at Miles, because his eyes were fixed on the ground like it was the only thing holding him up. "Miles," I said quietly. "Tell them." Lauren's head snapped toward him. "Miles," Don't, she hissed under her breath, and for a split second the softness fell away. The control showed. Miles flinched like he'd been slapped. Officer Daniels noticed. I saw it in the way his gaze shifted. "Miles," Daniels said, neutral. "Sir, are you involved in this report?" Miles swallowed hard. His hands shook as he pulled his phone out. He looked at Lauren like he was asking permission to breathe, then looked at me like he was asking forgiveness. "I didn't think it would turn into this," he said, his voice cracked. "I thought I was helping." Lauren stepped toward him fast, eyes sharp now. "Stop! You're confused. You're—" He cut her off, and it was the first time I'd ever heard him do that to anyone. "No," he said. "I'm not." He turned his phone screen outward, not to me, to the officer. "I have messages," he said, "from Lauren, about building a record." Lauren's face went still, like someone had yanked the power cord out of a machine. Kara's phone dipped toward Miles's screen like a starving animal. Officer Daniels held up a hand. "Ma'am, step back. Sir, you can show me." Miles's thumb trembled as he scrolled. I couldn't read every word from where I stood, but I caught fragments as he held it up. Talk about clips, paper trail, HR, lease. He won't have anywhere to go. The kind of language people use when they're moving a human life around like furniture. Lauren's voice went cold. "Miles, give me that." He didn't. He looked at Officer Daniels, then at me. Then, finally, he lifted his chin. "There's more," he said. My stomach tightened. "More what?" Miles's eyes filled, not with tears that looked pretty on camera. Real tears, ugly, ashamed. "I slept with her," he said, and the words landed with a dull thud that made the whole street feel quiet. "Months ago. Once, then more than once. She told me it was over. She told me she loved you, and then she used it. Used me." Lauren made a sound like she'd been punched, then instantly recovered into anger. "You liar!" she snapped, and it was loud enough that heads turned inside the coffee shop. "You're doing this because you're guilty about your own life." Donna surged forward, face twisting. "How dare you say that in public?" Kara's phone swung between them, capturing everything, her mouth open in a smile she couldn't hide fast enough. I felt like my ribcage was full of broken glass, but I didn't move. I didn't give them the explosion. Officer Daniels' posture changed slightly, more alert now, more official. "Ma'am," he said to Lauren, "I need you to take a breath and lower your voice." Lauren stared at him like she couldn't believe the script wasn't working. Miles kept going like he'd finally decided to burn the whole stage down. "She was already talking about leaving," he said. "Not just leaving, taking everything. She said if you looked unstable, it would be easy. She asked me to send an email to your HR from my friend's account. She asked me to put a meeting on your calendar so you'd see my name and spiral. She told me if you reacted in public, she'd have what she needed." I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't feel my feet. I could only hear my own breath. Too loud. Too shallow. Lauren's eyes went wild for 1 second, and then she did the thing I'll never forgive. She pointed at Miles and said, loud and trembling, "See? He's obsessed with me. He's trying to destroy my marriage. He's sick. That fast. That clean. Flip the blame." But Officer Daniels didn't look convinced anymore. His partner was already talking quietly into a radio, eyes flicking between phones and faces and body language like he was assembling a puzzle. Kara stepped closer to Lauren, whispering something, trying to pull her back into performance mode. Donna grabbed Lauren's arm. "We're leaving," she hissed. Lauren yanked her arm away and stepped toward me instead. keys suddenly in her hand again like a talisman. "Ethan," she said, voice softening mid-sentence like she was changing masks on camera. "Please, just come with us. You're not thinking straight." I stared at her, and it hit me in the simplest, most brutal way. She didn't want me back. She wanted me managed. Quiet, isolated, documented, removed. "Miles," I said, voice hoarse, "why did you text me, trust me?" He looked like he might fold in half. "Because she told me if you didn't listen, she'd file the order and tell everyone you were dangerous," he whispered, "and I thought I could keep you calm long enough to stop it. I didn't know she'd already started." Officer Daniels stepped forward a fraction, separating us with his presence. "Okay," he said, calm but firm. "Here's what's happening. Ethan, you're going to leave and go to a hotel. No contact. You will get formal paperwork. Miles, you need to save those messages and be prepared to provide them if the court requests. Ma'am," he looked at Lauren, "you need to stop escalating. This is being documented." Lauren's mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but for the first time all morning she looked uncertain. Not scared. Uncertain, like she'd lost control of the narrative. I picked up my phone again, slowly, and I did the only thing that felt like oxygen. I opened a new note and typed, hands shaking. Time, place, names. What was said? I snapped photos of the patrol car number, the officers' names on their uniforms, and, without looking at the screen, Kara's phone held up and recording. Kara hissed, "Don't film me." The irony almost made me choke. "I'm documenting," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I deserved. Lauren stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. "You're really doing this," she whispered. "I didn't start it," I said, "but I'm done being quiet." Miles stepped toward me, eyes wrecked. "Ethan!" I held up a hand, not cruel, just final. "Not now." Donna pulled Lauren backward, whispering fast. Kara kept filming until Officer Daniels turned his body slightly and said, "Ma'am, put the phone away." Kara blinked like she'd never been told no in her life. Lauren let Donna guide her toward the car, still clutching my keys like they were proof she owned something that had once been ours. Before she got in, she looked back at me one last time. Her face was calm again, but her eyes were furious. "You're going to regret this," she said softly. Maybe she meant court. Maybe she meant my job. Maybe she meant the stories she could still tell. I watched her leave anyway, because the regret I'd been living with was bigger than fear. When the street finally cleared, Officer Daniels handed me a small card with a case number on it. "Get legal counsel," he said, low enough that it sounded like advice, not a warning. "Stay calm. Let paperwork talk." I nodded because my throat didn't work. Miles stood beside me, silent, holding his phone like it weighed 100 pounds. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I didn't forgive him. I didn't punch him. I didn't give anyone a clip. I just looked at the case number, then at the cold Denver sky, and realized the truth wasn't one big reveal. It was a dozen small choices my wife had made, each one aimed at moving me out of my own life with clean hands and soft words. And the scariest part? It almost worked.